Dangote hold talks at the Unity Palace with focus on how to diversify and densify the Dangote Group investments in Cameroon. Prices of basic commodities shoot up in the market, with households in Cameroon on dire straits, making ends meet as the inflationary alert inches to red. Women Empowerment and Family Minister hits a big bang on the table, condemning perpetrators of child right abuse on social media, underscoring the government's determination to bring the culprits to book and stamp out the phenomenon. Those are our lead stories. Hello and thanks for joining us. I am Ben Menopufong and this is the 7:30 News.
I urge you once again to put on your face masks, to wash your hands regularly, and to consult a physician or any other health personnel if you notice any symptoms. This is the only way to save lives and to curb the spread of the virus.
You're welcome once again. President Paul Biya has discussed business opportunities with Africa's wealthiest man, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, and this was during an audience that the head of state granted to the Nigerian industrialist at the Unity Palace today. Mr. Dangote, who owns the Dangote Cement Factory in Douala, has promised to invest in other sectors such as oil and gas. Chief Unity Palace correspondent Ashwin picks up that story.
On this bright 23rd June 2021, the richest man in Africa and owner of one of the biggest cement factories in Cameroon, Nigerian-born Aliko Dangote, sets foot in the Unity Palace. He is received as he alights by the Chief of State Protocol, Simon Pierre Bikele, and a little further by the Minister Director of the Civil Cabinet, Samuel Mbondo Ayolo, before the businessman is introduced into the presence of the head of state.
Monsieur Aliko Dangote, président directeur général du groupe Dangote.
For about 45 minutes, Paul Biya and the billionaire industrialist talk nothing but business opportunities, continued investments, and the commercial attractiveness of Cameroon as the president and his government prove they can watch the back of investors.
As you are aware, when we first came into Cameroon, we started our work and then we had very, very big issues because of some people who tried to block us. But the president and also the cabinet really stood on our side and made sure that yes, we we continue with our work. But the work was stopped for almost a year and a half. But the president really gave us all the support. And that's why, it is a good opportunity for me to also thank him for making sure that, yes, they are always on the back of investors. And this has encouraged us to now think of doing much, much more to pay back for all the favors that they've done to us.
Dangote Cement, established in Douala half a dozen years ago, has boosted domestic cement production, reduced part of the domestic deficit, and helped in holding down the price for a bag of cement.
And I can assure you, if not because of Dangote, you'd have been paying double the price that you are paying today, because the other people who were here before us were not thinking about investing money. But, we feel very much at home here in Cameroon. Cameroon is a very good neighbor of Nigeria. And, if there is additional demand, we'll continue to put in our own resources to make sure that we double the capacity and make it self-sufficient.
It is therefore in recognition of Dangote Cement's contribution to the infrastructural development of Cameroon and Africa that President Paul Biya confers on Chairman Dangote the distinction of Commander of the National Order of Valor.
Monsieur Dangote, nous vous faisons commandeur de l'Ordre national de la valeur.
businessman Dangote leaves the Unity Palace reassured that he can still do business with Cameroon as he sets his sights on other ventures such as oil and gas.
And we stay at the Unity Palace, where the First Lady Chantal Biya was today granting audience to the spouses of heads of some diplomatic mission to Cameroon at in a friendship tea party to acquaint herself with them and consolidate friendship ties. Though in a relaxed mood and warm atmosphere, they all respected barrier measures to avoid the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mrs. Chantal Biya was in the company of the spouses, close collaborators, the spouses of her husband's close collaborators. Staff Lady Enanga Kebi reports.
The East Wing of the Unity Palace opens its doors this afternoon to some 9 spouses of heads of diplomatic missions to Cameroon. They comprise the spouses of the ambassadors from Senegal, Equatorial Guinea, Belgium, France, the High Commissioners of India and Canada. Also present were the spouses of the representatives of the African Union, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and the International Red Cross Committee. Some of them were visiting the East Wing of the Unity Palace for the very first time, but in all hospitality and simplicity, Mrs. Chantal Biya, in her usual smiles and warmth, created a relaxed atmosphere. The women chatted, exchanged a lot on social issues relating to women, and enjoyed the tea party. Next was the time to bid farewell at the end of it all. Here too, the women discovered the generosity and charm of Cameroon's First Lady. Mrs. Chantal Biya prepared souvenir packets for her august guests. Each of them left the main parlor of the East Wing full of smiles as they received their well-packed gifts and a bouquet of fresh flowers each. Assisted by the spouses of her husband's close collaborators, notably Mrs. Celine Ngongo, Crescence Babuke, Logène Belambela, and Sylvie Elungche, just to name a few, Mrs. Chantal Biya is actually passing across a message of hope to Cameroonians as well as friends of Cameroon. There is hope in the horizon indeed, as life is gradually coming back to normal after the long period of confinement imposed by the COVID-19 pandemic. It is not completely over yet, so let's not relent on the barrier measures. It was amidst a heavy downpour that the delegation of women left the East Wing of the Unity Palace full of words of gratitude, messages of hope, and appreciation to Mrs. Chantal Biya.
And now on to this press release from the Cabinet of the Prime Minister's Office, and it reads, on the esteemed instructions of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Paul Biya, the Prime Minister, Head of Government, Dr. Joseph Dangote, shall on Thursday, the 24th of June 2021 at 3 p.m. Preside over the ceremony to lay the foundation stone for the construction project of a hotel and leisure park called Hotel du Lac at the Mingoa Valley in Yaoundé. And that press release has been signed by the Director of Cabinet, Balungeli Confiance Ebune. Households in Cameroon are now spending a little more than their initial budgets as the prices of some basic commodities go skyrocketing on the market. Rice, wheat, palm oil, and even bread have all shot up, leaving households at odds, making ends meet on their daily and weekly menus. As Constantine Baum reports, the current inflationary trend has mainly been triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic and the high cost of importation that has disrupted production and supply chains.
These images might give the impression that there is enough palm oil in our local markets, but those who sell it say there is a shortage in supply and that the precious red oil has been in deficit for some years.
We have price distortion at local level compared to international level, and it is a distress when you look at palm oil. This country has the capacity to produce 2 million tons of palm oil per year, and yet we produce less than 500,000 tons. Now we even import palm oil from Gabon.
A lot has been done to prevent scarcity of rice in our local markets by importing.
We import goods that we are able to produce. So this affects the balance of trade. You cannot be growth if you keep importing and consuming. You have to produce at competitive cost. Most of the goods that we produce in Cameroon go abroad illegally. I would like to take the example of rice, which is produced in the north. 90% of the rice which is produced in Yagua is sold through to Nigeria, which means that price level in Nigeria are more attractive than price in Cameroon.
Don't be surprised that the size and quality of bread you buy might have been reduced because importation of wheat at this moment is high.
We need a due consensus on land tenure because there are large tracts of lands that have been allocated to some investors, and then the government rescinded the contract, the concession. And we need the administration to be proactive.
New investment will do more good, especially as COVID-19 has disrupted the rice supply chain in the Indian subcontinent.
As it stands, Cameroon still faces huge challenges in her ability to produce enough goods and services to meet local demand. A lacune that leads to an ever-increasing importation of different products despite the protectionist trade policy that the government is currently implementing. However, replacing importation by local production remains the ideal, as you say, Joyce Kimbi-Fowaju.
It is a paradox and even a contradiction that Cameroon, that has for ages been heralded as the breadbasket for Central Africa going by its rich agric potential, still massively, increasingly imports essential foodstuff such as rice, wheat, fish, dairy products, and several others. Information from the National Institute of Statistics shows that close to 800 billion CFA francs was spent last year in the importation of foodstuff, representing 3.4% of the country's GDP. It indicates an increase of 11% in import as compared to the previous years. A contradiction to the tons of policy statement and trade policies by government to boost the local production of products such as rice. In Cameroon, it is even easier to see dog steers than see Cameroonian rice on the market, despite all endeavors done to boost its production locally. Markets are flooded with imported junk. There is urgent need, therefore, to adopt a trade policy that strictly advocates replacing foreign imports with domestic production if the economy must be given a push. The Inter-Employers Union, GCAM, in its latest publication, proposes commodity chains, assumption of responsibility, setting up contractual and partnership framework with agric interprofessionals for the development of the production chain that will meet up local demand and contain the country's paradox of importing even toothpick.
Away from the economy to the society now, Cameroon's Minister of Women's Empowerment and the Family has condemned cases of child abuse, including online sexual exploitation of children. Marie-Thérèse Abenaondua was speaking during a press conference in Yaoundé today, during which she gave assurances of government's determination to protect victims and to ensure the prosecution of perpetrators in order to deter such a social ill. Details with Ewane Epole.
Recent scandals in regard to child abuse published on social media prompted the holding of the press conference. Addressing the pressmen and women, the Minister of Women Empowerment and the Family reiterated government's commitment in fighting against online child sexual exploitation abuse and other social ills.
The exploitation of young girls for commercial or pornographic purposes. The circulation of pornographic images of children and adolescents, incest, rape, the enrollment of youth in WhatsApp group or in pornographic websites, early and forced marriages, sexual harassment, pedophilia, sexual tourism involving young girls and children, female genital mutilation, brutal crimes on children and young girls, indecent and shocking images showing our young girls and children involved in sex parties.
According to the minister, non-governmental organizations are being involved in the fight.
We integrate partners in development as well as civil society. So each one of us has a role to play, and Plan International is just one. You have others with whom each ministry works at different levels. I can just mention maybe UNESCO, UNICEF, so we can limit child abuse.
The move by government is to protect victims, prosecute offenders, and promote national and international cooperation in the identification and prevention of these crimes.
Cameroon's Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications today rolled out a series of activities to jointly commemorate the International Day of the Girl Child and the Information Society Day. Just like the themes of the events, the activities focused on encouraging young girls to fully avail themselves of ICTs for their well-being and to sensitize the population on the importance of the tools to protect and uphold the plight of the girl child. Alice May reports.
From colleges in Yaoundé, officials from the GFA ministries and partners involved in communication and education of the youths took part in the conference marking the joint commemoration of the International Day of the Girl Child in ICT sector and the World Telecommunication and Information Society Day.
ITU is developing the strategies to permit young girls to be interested in the domain of ICT. The government of Cameroon is helping also to attain these goals.
Activities of the day centered on video conferences and exposés on platforms such as environment, water, nutrition, blood donation, and vaccinations.
To my platform, I wish to, first of all, since it's a vaccination app, I wish that each and every Cameroonian should be at least have an idea or have knowledge on vaccination, and each and everyone should take his vaccine.
During the ceremony, the Secretary General laid emphasis on the necessity for parents and teachers to inculcate digital skills in the girl child.
Cameroon today joins the globe to observe the 11th edition of the International Widow Day under the theme Eliminating Violence Against Women, Improving Their Living Conditions. Given the stigma and challenges women face, there is every reason to hope that government's commitment will be translated into concrete action as contained in the special declaration of the Minister Marie-Thérèse Abenaondwa. Here is an excerpt of the Minister's declaration in Yaoundé today.
The Ministry of Women's Empowerment and the Family, for its part, will continue its action in favor of the widow. These include raising the widow's awareness on their rights, building the capacity of widows to set up income-generating activities, associations, and network of associations, providing financial and material support to widows and orphans, and of course, this will be proportional to our budget. Legal assistance to widows, psychological support.
Cameroon's widows continue facing a number of challenges, including disputes with family members over property and the many responsibilities they single-handedly manage in the absence of their spouses. As the world marks the 2021 International Widow Day, with focus on invisible women, invisible problems, our reporter Cynthia Saptala brings out some of the injustices widows still face in different communities in Cameroon today.
Till death do us part, a vow taken when none imagines it can come to an end sooner than expected. A spouse dies and you become a widow, something Mama Dorette knows far too well.
16 years ago, I lost my husband. He was sick for 8 months, so it was a really challenge.
Married in 1989, her husband died 16 years later, leaving her with the responsibility of fulfilling the family's dreams.
My husband left me with 5 kids at a very tender age. The last one was just 5. I could only have about 32,000 from my husband's pension. As a nurse, I had to take extra jobs and even borrow.
For Mama Dorette, this is one of the memories she refuses to let go of, a car, his car, still standing in the yard. For this widow on phone, the years of caring for her beloved but sick husband wasn't enough challenges to overcome once he was gone.
My husband died while his parents were still alive, and they are still alive. So to them, it was some sort of abomination. He was the first son. He had to take care of the family, but then he's dead. So we have to sell his property to bury him and then keep part of the money to bury his parents later.
Many widows have had to walk on these paths, rebuilding some sort of a life after the death of a husband. But the one common thread they all share is the pain and loneliness that never goes away despite the years.
Youth of the Juin Labour Division in the South region of Cameroon have been urged to make good use of the different agro-pastoral training centers put at their disposal by government for their socio-professional improvement. This appeal was made by the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Gabriel Mbairobe, and his counterpart of Employment and Vocational Training, Issa Chiroma Bakari, during their inspection visit to some agricultural training schools in Zangmelima and Mayor Musala. Crise is in CRTV South.
Both members of government visited the Zoom Youth Agricultural Training Center and the Zangmelima Technical School of Agriculture. Both institutions have been outstanding in grooming young agro-pastoral entrepreneurs. Students of the Technical School of Agriculture, ETA, presented vast cassava, maize and plantain farms to Ministers Gabriel Mbairobe and Issa Chiroma Bakari. In Oyo, a small village in Mayomasala, both members of government were amazed at the success story of Marie Giacomo, a young lady who benefited from the support program for the renovation and development of professional training in the agricultural, livestock and fisheries sector.
We can seize this opportunity to encourage all the young women and boys of Jalabo to trust the soil.
The working visit also took both members of government to the Zangmelima Advanced Vocational Training Center and to the base of the Local Materials Promotion Authority, Miprol Malo.
One of the main area of focus of the 40th Shuttle Afrique that is holding in Yaoundé is a symposium on the need for sustainable urbanization which creates wealth and reduces poverty. During the event, town planners agreed that the national urban policy should integrate the socio-cultural and environmental realities of each region. Clarice Array Takang tells us how.
Overcrowding and poor hygiene and sanitation exposing inhabitants to various risks. The effects of growing but uncontrolled urbanization. It becomes urgent to check a situation town planners insist is a threat to sustainable development.
You should turn challenges into opportunities. If you have a vast community, if that community will come together, why don't we devise a sort of housing plan where we're going to a sort of cooperative?
The putting in place of a clearly defined national urban policy comes across as one of the ways of guaranteeing urbanization which meets Africa's emergence agenda.
You have to know what are the needs, what are the demands, who needs what, before you develop the policy, because they have to respond to those needs. Although some of the challenges, it's important that we don't generalize in terms of needs.
The contribution of developers and financial institutions is non-negligible.
The proportion of the city space built by population called the attention of decision makers to revisit the way they are conceiving and planning the cities.
Harnessing the potential of each housing model and system thus remains an asset to build on.
And lawmakers in Cameroon have joined the executive to invite Cameroonians to massively show up for the COVID-19 vaccination as the Ministry of Public Health sets out to launch a special campaign for the exercise come July 7. The MPs made the appeal at a special plenary sitting of the National Assembly, during which Public Health Minister Manauda Malache briefed the parliamentarians on how the vaccination exercise has been unfolding thus far and where his ministry was with the putting in place of a universal health coverage in the country. From the National Assembly, Esther Kmer reports.
2 months after the introduction of COVID-19 vaccines in Cameroon, the inoculation rate stands at 7%, way below the 20% target deplored by the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Theophile Barrow, and blamed on non-adherence and hesitancy. For some lawmakers, the campaign should be obligatory to save the state coffers.
Those who don't get vaccinated may end up paying for their own bills because
the vaccine has been made available by the head of state, they should be able to pay for their treatment.
We want healthy Cameroonians. Everybody should be vaccinated as is taking place elsewhere.
In the absence of a legal instrument, it is tough for the state to render the vaccination statutory after disbursing 75 billion CFA francs for its acquisition.
You are going to run a campaign of vaccination in the period of 7 to 11 July.
With regards to the universal health coverage in gestation, the lawmakers recommend quality service and equity in access.
Ensure that all the population, regardless of social category, are fully integrated into the universal health coverage mechanisms in accordance with the norms of national solidarity.
Good governance and alert mechanisms for the sustainability of the program are also requested.
Despite our efforts, COVID-19 plunged many families into mourning and seriously hampered the functioning of our economy and society.
Cameroon will, as from the 7th of July 2021, embark on a mass immunization campaign against COVID-19 in order to attain herd immunity across the country. Gilbert Ongene and his guest at the Public Health Emergency Operations Center, Dr. Njo Andreas Eteke, are now explaining to us what the concept of herd immunity is all about and how it will benefit Cameroon. Hello, Gilbert.
Good evening, Ben Menopufong. Televiewers, welcome to the Public Health Emergency Operations Center. Today we are talking about herd immunity, a situation whereby transmission is no longer possible because the population, majority of the population have been vaccinated. And with us here at the Public Health Emergency Center is Dr. Njo Andreas of the National Immunization Program. Good evening to you, Doctor.
Good evening, Gilbert.
Now tell us, herd immunity, what is it all about and what is the situation in Cameroon today?
Yes, thank you so much. I think herd immunity in this context is specifically to COVID. And at the moment, our goal as a country is to attain at least 40% of the population vaccinated against COVID-19. And once this occurs, it will be able to place the population in a platform whereby if an individual is infected and he gets into the population, there will be a less likelihood of transmission to other members of the population.
Okay, tell us, in a situation whereby the vaccination campaign stops, can we attain herd immunization or immunity?
Yes, of course, Gilbert. I think the major issue is if the population is not fully vaccinated to at least a minimum for which we can attain herd immunity. If it happens that for some reason we are unable to vaccinate the target or the vaccine is not enough, then we will likely not be able to attain herd immunity in our country. And if that occurs, whenever there is an individual who comes in with COVID-19, the disease will likely spread. So I think for us to break the transmission chain, we need to adhere to the vaccination program, get vaccinated against COVID-19, such that the disease will eventually stop in our communities.
Now, what is the target for Cameroon, and what is the likelihood that this target will be attained?
Yes, the first thing is that we are aiming to vaccinate at least 40% of the total Cameroon population. And at the moment, we still have a lot to do.
You got it all, Ben Menopufong. The vaccination campaign continues. Over to you, studio.
Thank you very much, Gilbert Ongene, and see you tomorrow. The 7:30 news on the Cameroon Radio Television. That's the...
I urge you once again to put on your face masks, to wash your hands regularly, and to consult a physician or any other health personnel if you notice any symptoms. This is the only way to save lives and to curb the spread of the virus.
Parlons de village.